Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Louie, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Ron Carson, the founder and CEO of Carson Group, a fintech, consulting, and retail advisory firm. Welcome to the show, Ron.
Hey, Malcolm. Thank you for having me.
Ron, you grew your company's revenue from $34.8 million in 2014 to $71.3 million in 2017, a 105% increase, and in 2018, you hit around $106 million. Before we talk about how you grew your company so fast, can you briefly share what your company does beyond my quick intro and how your company differs from the competition?
I sure could, and you might find it interesting, Malcolm. I actually grew up on a farm just north of here, and so I started this with zero revenue out of my college dorm room. But what we are today is fintech. We develop technology to make the complex simple for financial advisors so they can do it for their clients. Then we also have a consulting firm. We consult with about 5,000 advisors around the country on growing their business more efficiently, and we help them all the way with HR issues to tech issues to how to market and how to structure their business. And this also is a really valuable because it gives us truly everyday real-time intel from the trenches. And then we have Carson Wealth, which is our retail RIA. I think we have around 19 locations, maybe 20 now in the U.S.
Great. Now, in terms of a percentage of revenue, how much of your business comes from fintech, consulting, and retail advisory?
So the fastest by far growing part of our business is really our fintech offering. It is, and I don't have it broken down as a percentage, and some of these are intra-connected.
Okay.
The success on the retail allows us to have credibility with our fintech offering, and our coaching consulting group helps us really identify people that might be a good candidate to actually join. We're calling it a movement, Malcolm. This is about something bigger than just building a business. It's about helping advisors add value beyond a doubt. And today, I think it's super interesting that most financial advisory firms are not growing because they're having a hard time demonstrating to their clients why their fee is justified. And those that can do that are growing super fast right now.
Right. So you're the three cogs of your machine. Then you mentioned they're interrelated, so they kind of grow on each other. It wouldn't be the same if one bit was missing.
Yeah. So I started the retail business in 1983. And because of that success in 93, I started our consulting group. Because of that success, people wanted to know how on earth, me being in Omaha, Nebraska, was I doing so well. And then in 2012, we decided to develop. We looked for technology to do what our clients were asking for, what we wanted it to do. And so we developed really technology. If you think about some of our partners, like a Fidelity, a TD Ameritrade, Orion, they spend billions of dollars, but it's almost like the old VCR flashing 12. No one's getting anywhere close to the capability. So we spent made a lot of our investments around getting the most out of our partners' technology in a single source, single pane of glass experience for the consumer.
Right. Now, on the fintech side, can you give a little more details as to what your fintech offerings are to the advisors?
Yeah, so our fintech, what's interesting, and by the way, for your listeners, there's an interview that Jeff Bezos did at the Washington Economic Forum last October. It may be the best interview on just ideas on how to grow your business and what you should be thinking about. But what we do is imagine this single environment where you put in one piece of data, Malcolm, and you never have to put it in again. I mean, nothing here. I go to the Mayo Clinic every year for 20 some years. They've asked me my date of birth. I go, it's never changed. And to make things worse, they make me put it on 6 or 7 different paper documents. It drives me crazy how inefficient that is. And I'm paying for that as a client, and they're also wasting my time.
Yep.
So imagine a world where once even as a prospect, you give us a piece of information, we're never going to ask for it again unless it changed. Certain things don't change. Normally, a people's name doesn't change, their children's name don't change, their spouse. Sometimes they get rid of a spouse, but that's a whole other story. And so this information all talks with one another. It talks with, opening accounts, measuring risk in your portfolio. I go back to the Bezos comment because we're actually this ecosystem where we're adding and layering in additional capabilities. We're already talking about things we'll be adding in 2020, but also at the same time, we're keeping, this technology is very high AQ. And I call that something we coined at Carson, adaptability quotient, because none of us can imagine, and the average advisor has no idea what technology is going to become available. So we put a lot of effort in remaining adaptable with clean data and data warehouses. But this is technology that will do everything from compliance, marketing, asset management, the comprehensive planning through subject matter experts. So their clients and advisors can go to the we call it single source of truth, and really have their whole wealth, not financial life, but their whole wealth life in an easy to understand, easy to see portal, knowing exactly where they're at, knowing things are continuously happening proactively for them behind the scenes.
So you grew your business really rapidly, 35 million in 2014 to 106 million 4 years later. So you almost tripled your business in 4 years. What were the drivers behind that growth?
So we are in Omaha, Nebraska. I kid people all the time. I was doing an interview from a guy from the Bay Area today. And I said, once I get you here, you'll love it because we are the center of the universe. But people always say people, but having the right culture, if you don't get the culture right, culture eats strategy for lunch. You can have the best laid plans, but if you can't get real people behind it, willing to give it their all, even when it's not convenient for them to do so, it's going to be very difficult to execute. So I say number one is culture. Number two, we're providing a service that others are attempting, but nobody has figured out to integrate it the way we have. And we've been very fortunate in the development teams that we work with because they have, strong business understanding as well. And Malcolm, I'd say the third, which I think has only recently become a huge advantage for us, but I'm not building this firm to sell it. I want to have a 100-year firm. I've got I know the next generation of succession. I'm relatively young at 54. And I can see succession even after that. And the handful of people that compete against us, they're out there building it to sell. So advisors and then the clients they serve don't know who they're actually going to be owned by, which I can give some pretty good certainty. So if you think about those three items, I think it's what's really propelled our growth.
Right. So first item, having the right culture where you can have people 100% behind the strategy and giving it their all to accomplish it. The second one, you're providing a service that no one else has done before. So you have a bit of a first mover advantages. Would that be right to describe it?
Yeah, that would be very accurate. People have started to copy us. And I know, hey, every day I wake up, I think of us as a day one company and I wake up paranoid.
Right.
And I ask my team to do the same thing. So no, I'm absolutely very aware of the fact that, hey, we had a first mover advantage, but people can catch up very quickly today.
Yep. So do you have trouble sleeping from your paranoia?
Not at all. Even since I've been a kid, I pass out like I'm in a coma. I've never had problems sleeping, but I only need about 6.5 hours a night, but I rarely wake up to an alarm clock. There's a great book out there by Professor Moss from Columbia University called Power Sleep. I read it when I was 36 years old, and it revolutionized the way I rest.
Yeah. I envy my boy because he could sleep You just switch it on, he's asleep, right? It doesn't matter where we are. I'm like thinking, man, that guy's so efficient, right? He can just doze off just like that whenever, and then wake up just like that. No trouble sleeping for him. And people who can do that, I think they have a leg up.
And let me just make a comment. I think personally, as a CEO, that's also been a huge advantage for me, as I've protected my sleep. And everybody listening to this has a different requirement. And I look at what my REM is, my deep sleep every single morning. And if it's not where it needs to be, I adjust things. But having a restful body allows me to be a lot more creative. And I also practice transcendental meditation. And I know there's lots of different meditation out there, but I strongly recommend it. It's hard for type A personalities I always say slow down to speed up. I do these Ron Sense videos, so I put 2 or 3 out a week, and they're around these little tidbits. But I got a ton of feedback on that one, Malcolm, is just slow down to speed up and allow your creativity to flourish. And I've had a lot of people try it, and they've had tremendous success with it.
Yeah, I can see how slowing down to speed up makes sense. I mean, just from a practical perspective, do things a bit more slowly, you can get the process nailed down, and then you can speed it up and execute a process that's optimal fast, right? As opposed to just trying to get stuff done quickly and doing it the worst possible way.
Yeah, and as we consult with business owners around the country, they're all living in such a hard whirlwind that they rarely can emerge and look down on their business. They're just so sucked into it that they can't see the obvious. I'll share a quick story with you. Growing up on a farm, overnight we'd leave our equipment out in the field, and one particular night we came back and our truck had sunk full of soybeans, had sunk down. And my dad tried to pull it out with the combine, broke some chains. We go to town, we got a 4-wheel drive tractor. We're having a hard time getting this truck out. And one of our neighboring farmers pulls up on the road and says, "Why on earth are you guys trying to pull it out? Why don't you just pull that wagon up, empty the grain into it, and then just drive the truck out?" And my dad's like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so stupid." So What we were spending hours of doing and tearing up chains and equipment, someone out from the outside, it took literally 5 seconds for them to provide a solution for us.
Yeah, sometimes having a fresh perspective can give you solutions that you never even thought of. And it's shocking, right? You kind of hit yourself on the head and go, why didn't I think about that first?
Some of my biggest ahas have come from people we don't need new landscapes. We need new eyes. We need different views on the same thing to see around our blind spots.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure you've seen it as an investment manager, right? There are hundreds and not thousands of ultra successful businesses, and they're not all startups that came up with some brand spanking new idea, right? Many of them, most of them are existing businesses that have been around, but they just found a better way of doing the same thing that everyone else has been doing, but in a different way that works better.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I mean, yeah, you can have a startup, but today, I mean, service in our economy is just awful. So if you just show up and provide good service, you're going to be ahead of most. In care, you're going to be ahead of the rest. And also get in a mindset where you're not defending what you know and what you're comfortable with, but every day, think of yourself as a day one company. I don't care how old your company is, and reevaluate it with all the new information that we have. We're in the experience age, information age, and just being, having an open mind and just imagining the art of the possible. I think for those that do that and execute well, there's never been a more exciting time to be alive and to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Tons of opportunities out there. You just have to see it. So the third driver you mentioned about how you build your company, not to sell it, but to have it continue on, decades, centuries beyond you. How does that change how you do your business, how you grow your business?
So if I were, first of all, Malcolm, just for the listeners, Wall Street, I've learned over my career, Wall Street, in my opinion, continues to take advantage of everybody, even the sophisticated, and they have no idea. And just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. So our whole value proposition is centered around putting the consumer first, always. Now, in order to do that, you got to make big investments. You got to be totally transparent. You need to be able to show value beyond a doubt. You need to be able to make the complex simple. So these are all things that if you don't do it, you're not going to be in a position to really serve people. Well, being able to take a long-term view, not having to worry about quarterly earnings because we're not publicly traded, not having to worry about an exit because we need to get our earnings and cash flow. We're looking at this. It's amazing. And this is why I admire Fidelity. Fidelity is owned by the Johnson family. Fidelity is, in my mind, one of the greatest corporate citizens the world has, because they've done, I think, so much in other areas that people don't even know about, but they're a private company. They get to take a long-term view. They don't have to be on this short-term treadmill and suffer from short-termism. Short-termism is a condition where you do what you, in the short run, for immediate gratification at the expense of what you know is a long-term benefit. And politicians suffer from this, and so do publicly traded companies because of reporting earnings every quarter.
Right. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Lets you play the long game much more easily, which most people aren't playing. So in a way, that's also a less competitive space as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of 2019, what's the biggest opportunity you see, and what obstacles does your team need to overcome to achieve it?
So the biggest opportunity by far, if I set the stage for financial services, is there's a shortage of financial advisors. And in the mid 90s, there's roughly 500,000. Today, there's 288,000. Of the 288, 111,000 of those are expected to retire soon. And I say soon, it'll be around a bear market or dramatic regulatory change, which we almost had Trump not won office. We would have had called the DOL rule, which would have forced a lot of businesses just to decide to get out of the business. And so for 2019, I like to think, our business has had this tremendous growth, but the game hasn't even started yet. Using a baseball analogy, we're not even in the first pitch of the first inning. We're just arriving at the stadium and we got the bags and starting to get the equipment out. And so the focus for Carson is continue to build in our ecosystem, banking capabilities, legal docs. I mean, things that I know are pressure points for the consumer where they could have it done with top tier subject matter experts, knowing that there's proactiveness going on behind the scenes. So 2019, 2020 will be around us continuing to add capabilities to services that will allow value beyond a doubt for the consumer. Think of Amazon. Amazon has done, no one thinks twice about renewing their Prime membership. I saw Amazon delivering packages to my house on Easter.
Right.
Didn't see FedEx, UPS. I mean, they're a disruptive force because they're doing what other companies won't do. They're making the complex simple. We get value beyond a doubt. So we want to allow clients in wealth management and financial services to have an Amazon-like experience. So in 19 and 20, we're maniacally focused on building out additional infrastructure.
Okay. How about in terms of marketing and sales? What challenges do you see there in terms of growing your advisor base, growing your investor base, raising your assets?
That's probably, I don't want to jinx myself by saying this, but I mean, we had a fantastic marketing department to begin with. And then I acquired, Carson acquired a marketing firm last year called Mineral Interactive. So we added about another 30 marketing people. These are writers, website developers, and in some case where, we are generating a lot of unique content every single day. So marketing, we'll generate thousands of leads, high quality leads for our partners to actually work with retail clients. And on sales, I mean, we are we actually have more people today that want to do business with us. I mean, if you said today, if you had an advisory firm, Malcolm, and you wanted to join us, we couldn't even begin. We call it a transformation process until September. So we got a nice backlog. So, sales is not our bottleneck. But it's properly transforming advisors and their business into the Carson ecosystem.
Right. So when you're saying you can't help advisors come onto your platform in December, you're talking about getting them into being able to use your ecosystem, right?
Yeah, in September, like if someone signed today, they couldn't even start the process until September of this year.
Right. Now, when you say someone, you're talking about the individual financial advisors, or are you talking about their firms?
Their firms. Their firms. But most of the firms, well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say most of them are owned by a single advisor, but anymore, I mean, the last several we've done have had 2, 3, and 4 owners, of the firm. So it's the entity that becomes a client of Carson. Although, if there's an advisor out there that's on his own, has a small amount of business, under 100 million in assets, we actually we have them join an existing office. So there, in some cases, it could be an individual advisor.
Right. Now, earlier you said something along the lines of there's like 400,000. No. What did you share? I think you said it's now 200 or so thousand advisors right now, right? I think that's what you said.
Yeah. In the mid 90s, there was roughly 500,000 financial advisors. And today there's 288,000. Of the 288, 111,000 are expected to retire fairly soon. And so it's a little bit like, I have a concierge doctor who I love, but he's not taking any new clients. And my dad's doctor retired recently, and he had a heck of a time finding a doctor. And we have the same dynamic that's going on. Think about how many more people we have than we had in the mid 90s. Think about how much more wealth there is than we had in the mid 90s. Think about the additional complexity to navigate today versus the mid 90s. That's why we're so excited about the opportunity, because we believe we can provide the best experience at incredible scale.
Right. Now, so there are 288,000 advisors out there. How many advisory firms are employing those 288,000, do you reckon?
There's roughly 50,000 firms out there. So think about how inefficient that is. We don't need 50,000 marketing departments, 50,000 compliance departments, 50,000 trading or research departments. Very, very small. No one has name brand recognition. No one has any meaningful percentage of the market. And we think because our focus is being consumer advocate and sitting on the same side of the table as a consumer, we think we're going to be able to consolidate much of the profession with advisors that think the way we do, that want to be client focused, solution focused, not product.
You've actually got a nice chunk of that market, right? Because I think earlier you said you're consulting to 5,000 advisors right now. Was that advisory firms or individual advisors?
Yeah, so on our consulting side, we have 5,000 advisors that pay as a monthly retainer, but we have alumni that numbers. If you take existing and alumni, people that have been through used our services, because they'll come in and out when they have a need.
Yep.
Good point. We've got about, we have a relationship with about 10% of the market. On the other side, though, where we're actually providing all the services, not just telling them what to do, we're actually doing it for them. That's our fintech.
Yep.
And that is, we have less than 0.5%, and nobody really has more than 0.5%. And think about what happened in banking, Malcolm. In the 1984, there was 15,000 banks, and no one really owned any percentage of the market. Today, 4 banks control more than 50% of the market.
Right. Yeah. But that banks are kind of, way back then, there were like laws that prevented them from going across states, right? Once those regulations got lifted, it allowed for a lot more consolidation, right?
That's correct. Oh, yeah, what happened anyways. It happened in accounting.
Yep.
And the other thing I would share is how quickly I was on a call. We used to own Blockbuster Video, in our portfolios. And I remember that someone was talking about this upstart Netflix. Was it a real competitor? And they laughed and I said, no, they send CDs or scratch. And I could relate to this because I was an early adopter of Netflix.
Yeah.
But they did the mistake people make when they look at their competition. They look as they are at the moment, not where they're moving to.
Yep.
And Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix, I actually brought him into one of our meetings and did a CEO roundtable with him. He was talking about the fact that they tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster and they basically got laughed out of the building.
Yeah.
And people were resting on the fact, oh, they're going to want to go, they're going to have a great experience. Not so. That's why small companies can disrupt big companies, because they're nimble and they have that AQ, adaptability quotient, which Netflix dramatically changed its offering, its pricing. They developed a lot of their own content, and we know what a success story that was. And Blockbuster filed bankruptcy, and from their peak to their demise in about 6 years.
Yeah. Netflix just offers that convenience factor, right? That Blockbuster doesn't have when they run out of your titles that you want.
And they save time, right? Time. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to go and you don't have to be disappointed. You get what you need. Yeah. And that's where Amazon is brilliant. My daughter was just telling me that, hey, Dad, I order my groceries. I get it the next day. The time that Amazon gives me is incredible.
Oh, huge.
So that value beyond a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, why go to the store and buy something that's going to suck up an hour of your time when if you can just wait 2 days, it can be at your doorstep. Right? It's a great proposition.
Or the next day in Omaha, she's able to she orders it today, she has it tomorrow.
Ah, nice. So,
yeah.
If you were to have a billboard in Omaha or anywhere else in the nation, what would your billboard message say? Keep in mind that people only have 6 seconds before they cruise by a billboard.
Yeah. Making the complex simple and adding value beyond a doubt.
All right. Complex simple is good. So is adding value beyond the doubt too. Okay. And last 2 questions. Who are your ideal clients and what's the best way for them to reach your team?
So our ideal client is someone who wants to become a delegator, that really wants to use professionals to proactively think about all of their stuff. And we really operate in an environment of 500,000. We have several billionaire clients. And I would, in a second opinion, Malcolm, if we get a second opinion, we can look at someone's situation. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that's not being optimized, whether it's tax, estate, asset management, asset location service, tax efficiency on the way they're managing assets. And you go to carsongroup.com or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then I also put out these little videos called Ron Sense, and they go to carsongroup.com. They can sign up for those. I keep them all under 2 minutes. So if you like some of the stuff we talked about today, I drip 2 or 3 of those out a week.
Right. Now, how about for the advisors for your consulting and fintech? Who are your ideal advisors to invite onto the waiting list of your platform?
Yeah. So an advisor who, first of all, as a cultural fit, meaning that they don't want to offer product. They want to be totally transparent with their clients. And so if they meet that criteria, 100 million minimum of advisory assets. And we take firms well over $1 billion in size. So let's call it, 100 million to 1.5 billion. Although we're working on a deal right now where they're over 2 billion in size.
Right. And they can contact you at carsongroup.com as well?
Yeah. And my personal email is rcarson@carsongroup.com. And I respond to all my emails if someone wants to email me, even just with a question.
All right. Fantastic. It's been great having you on my show, Ron. I really enjoyed hearing about how you grew your company so fast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Malcolm.
We've been speaking with Ron Carson, the founder and CEO of Carson Group, about his company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.